Well, this morning we are talking pregnancy in the workplace, something many women can relate to, myself included, in the past, I should say, not not right now. Robin Lalley from family law attorney at Sodoma Law York is here to walk us through it all and things to consider. It's been a while for me that I've dealt with the maternity leave and all the issues around that, Robin, but it is overwhelming. You find out you're pregnant and you're dealing with all of that, but then you're also thinking, how am I going to go back to work? What's my maternity leave going to look like? What are my rights? What do I need to take care of? So let's start with that. When you find out you're pregnant, first, when are you obligated to tell your place of work at that time? At what point during your pregnancy, or are you ever obligated to tell them what your plans are?
You're really never obligated to tell them, but certainly with pregnancy, something is going to give you away eventually. Right. And it really is in your best interest to know what your maternity leave policy looks like, because not every policy is the same. So if you work for a small business or a new business, you may be the first person there that's been pregnant. So it may take a conversation with your employer to know what the maternity or the paternity leave policy looks like from their perspective.
And there are certain laws that are laws that apply to any business, but there are some that are specific to your place of business. So let's talk first about how you are protected legally when you're pregnant, regardless of where you work.
It doesn't apply to every employer, but you need to find out whether the Family Medical Leave Act applies to you, FMLA. That can allow you to take a certain number of weeks, up to 12 weeks unpaid leave, and it secures your job so that you can't be fired for being pregnant and for taking those 12 weeks of leave. So that is something that can legally protect you if it applies to you, and if it applies to
I thought that applied to everyone.
No, it does not. So it only applies to certain employers and certain types of businesses. So you need to find out if that applies to you.
Okay.
If it doesn't, then you need to have that conversation with your employer or know what the maternity policy looks like, so you know whether your job is secure, whether you have paid maternity leave, whether it's unpaid, whether you have a short-term disability policy that can fill that gap in income while you're out.
Which is a common misconception. I'm glad you mentioned that about paid or unpaid, because that is a huge question for folks.
Yes.
And for a lot of women, that determines, a lot of families, I should say, that determines whether or not they can take maternity and how long they'll take it, because it is not required that an employer pay you while you're out on maternity.
It is not. And if you just ask your friends who have had a baby, you will hear every story of, I had 4 weeks paid, I had 4 months paid, I had no time paid. So you might have to start saving. You might have to consider other options as far as, am I going to come back to work? Is my spouse going to work while I'm on leave? Are they going to be able to take leave? So those are definitely things you need to consider.
Now, when you talk about going back to work, again, the question comes up, when do you need to tell your employer when you will be back? And when do you need to tell your employer if you plan to not come back? Again, there's no sort of rule as far as that goes. You have that ownership, but certainly if you want the option of coming back, or you want the option of discussing, can I work part-time, can I work from home, those are conversations that you definitely need to have ahead of time so that you know what those options are. You don't want any surprises where, 8 weeks into your maternity leave, you decide you want to work from home and your employer says that's not an option for you. Now, we don't want to leave the men out, okay, because the men had something to do with this whole situation as
Yes.
well. And a lot of places do have a lot of progressive paternity leave policies now. How does that play out legally?
It's the same thing. If there's a very well laid out paternity leave policy, you can know that going into it. You can know that your spouse might have even more leave than you do, depending on what their position is and what their employer is. And so they may be able to take that extra time and allow you to go back to work so that you don't lose your position or that you don't go without income for a certain period of time, and they may be able to fill that gap in the child care for your little one while they're a newborn.
Great answers this morning. For anybody going through that, you can look up more information. We'll have it all on our website, fox46charlotte.com. Robin Lalley with Sodoma Law, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.